Alright, we're getting close to Valentine's Day, and we need to change the mood in here a little bit. Well, hold a sec. Hey Dootuz, let's bust it out! Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. This sets the mood right here. This is the love weekend, and if you're in a relationship, wanting to be in one, or couldn't care less, we're gonna have some fun here just like we always do. Now here, we're gonna be doing some couples counseling, and today's couple is gonna be the first couple of crime. The Joker and Harley Quinn. These two have some deep history by themselves, so if you want a little more detailed look at their individual stories, I did videos on both the Joker and Harley that I'll be putting links in that special corner up top. And the thing about these two right here is that they got that Katy Perry hot and cold kind of relationship. They're up and down, yes and no, fight and break up, that sort of thing. There are continuities where they're living on their own apart from each other, and others where HQ is raising up some mini J's. An utterly terrifying thought, to be sure. And sure, some of it is gonna get a little dark, because this is not one of those relationships you want to be replicating in real life, and not just because these two are homicidal maniacs. Because I could have done a couples counseling on so many of the good examples in the DC universe. Superman and Lois Lane, Green Arrow and Black Canary, Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. Trust, there ain't nothing good about these two. Also, because the story of this duo has so many variations and twists between the comics, animated movies and shows, and everything else, we're gonna stick with their general story beats that are mostly consistent across media. So, what makes Harley Quinn and the Joker a threat to not just society, but to each other? I'm the guidance guy, and your internet school counselor is about to enter the madness. When looking at any couple, you have to start with how they met, because looking into how a relationship starts can tell us a lot about where it's gonna go in the future. Depending on the situation, the way a couple gets together sets the foundation for habits, dynamics, and ways of being that become normalized. And this is not always a bad thing. There are couples who get together that live life in a way that is unconventional to those around them, but because it's constructive to them and it has a positive impact on them, they continue to do it because it works. Like say, the married couple who does marathons together as a bonding experience. Trust, I ain't running no marathon, I'm more of a sprinter myself. But if doing that helps a couple stay in love, then more power to them, don't try to stop them. But in the case of the clown prince and princess, we see the beginnings of the utter dysfunction that has defined their relationship throughout the years. Dr. Harleen Quinzel meets our crazy clown when she starts working at Arkham Asylum and begins doing therapy with him. Now, I have no idea why the Arkham psychiatrist thought it was a good idea to send a fresh, straight out of grad school doctor to do therapy with the most notorious criminal in the place. Seriously, and by herself? No help, no assistance, just, look chick, we tried, it's your turn now. But whatever. Things start going south almost immediately as the Joker starts manipulating his past in order to manipulate Dr. Q. He'll talk about his father who abused him and how he tried to make his old man happy, or other tragic events in his childhood that the Jester of Genocide would use to get sympathy from his therapist. The problem, of course, is that likely none of what he said was true. But that's what happens when you work with a pathological liar. They not only lie, but they're so accustomed to twisting the truth that not only are they able to sell their version of reality to others, they can convince themselves of their own fabrications. And Mr. J didn't do all this to get some pity points. He did it because he saw Quinzel as an easy target. He knew why she wanted to work with him, so that she could become the one to cure the clown. He saw her insecurity, her need for validation and belonging, and he knew exactly what he needed to do to not just get his doctor to believe him, but to want to join up with him. So right here, we see the beginnings of manipulation as a norm in this first couple of crime. The Joker knows what buttons to push, what strings to pull in order to get what he wants out of Harley Quinn. The Ace of Knaves is able to take advantage of Quinn's desire for recognition and craving to belong and purpose to get her to do anything he wants. Be it helping him plot mass murder or willingly be the fall girl that goes back to Arkham while he gets away scot-free. And from Harley's point of view, we see her adopt a twisted perspective. She doesn't see her Putin as the psychotic anarchist that he is. And it's not because she can't. Come now, she's a psychiatrist for crying out loud. No, she doesn't see the truth because she chooses not to. She's so enraptured by her charismatic, smooth-talking patient that she chooses to ignore the fact that the man she's falling for is a green-haired nihilist with no regard for human life. She chooses to see her man in a positive light, even if she has to make up that light herself. And it's that combination of shameless manipulation and a twisted perspective that explains how these two were together for so long. Sure, in some versions Harley's out of the clutches of the Joker, but the reason why she stuck with him for so long was because she refused to see him for who he really was, because she feared that a reality without him was worse than a reality with him. And with that understanding, the madman had a carte blanche to treat her any way he wanted and get away with it. And trust, we're gonna get into that in a moment. And it's that dynamic that explains why these two have been responsible for some of the most heinous acts in Gotham, like the murder of Jason Todd, the second Robin in the comics, or kidnapping and brainwashing Robin number 3, Tim Drake, into a mini Joker, or simply all the times Harley stood by for every time her boo hijacked TV stations to threaten violence or approved of a diabolical chemical attack on the citizens of Gotham. Obviously, this is not an example of love goals. This is not a couple anyone should want to emulate, because the end result of a relationship involving one partner that writes a blank check to every kind of action and another who will say or do anything to get what they want is nothing less than mistreatment and abuse. Now, before we move on, I do want to give some warnings first. This part of the video is going to dig into examples of physical and psychological mistreatment. If seeing or hearing examples of this kind of thing brings you to a dark place, then feel free to skip out or just to walk out now. And if you find yourself thinking that you may be in a situation like the ones being discussed, please be sure to get some help. I've put some resources in the description to get you started. Like we said, we have ourselves a couple in which one partner is a conniving, selfish sociopath and the other a complete stan who will put up with anything the other does, even if it's directed at them. And between the movies, the comics, and the animated series, the nature of their relationship is not pretty in the slightest. There are more than a few times that we've seen Harley get smacked around by the Joker for literally doing nothing, and often she's trying to be helpful. But the instances we see in the comics go way beyond basic shock value. For example, in the rebooted DC Universe comics, The New 52, the Clown Prince of Crime actually dies, leaving the princess wandering without purpose. But what ends up happening is that she joins the Suicide Squad, and in her time there she begins to heal herself, her self-esteem, and she actually emotionally moves on from her toxic love affair. That is, until Mr. J comes back, because he always does, and then he tortures her, chaining her to a wall surrounded by corpses dressed up like her, all for the sake of breaking her newfound independence. Or how about the time that he gave her flowers as a romantic gesture, only to shoot her in the stomach point blank? Or how about this? In the story Injustice Gods Among Us Year 2, HQ gets pregnant. Yes, this happens. And she disappears to have the baby, knowing that her man wouldn't want anything to do with the situation. And when she inevitably comes back, Old Red Hood acts like he didn't even notice his woman was gone for 12 months. And naturally, when we hear about situations like this, when someone is being severely mistreated by someone else, the obvious question that comes up is, why don't they just leave? Harley's an adult, she can take care of herself, why can't you just get up and leave the situation? The thing is, we gotta remember, is that Harley Quinn doesn't want to leave. She desires to be in this dysfunctional mess of a relationship. But how? With control. Like I said, the Harley Quinn of hate is a master manipulator, and he uses an array of techniques to control his high-energy sidekick. The Women's Rural Resource Center goes into detail on these techniques, and one of the most common tactics used in these relationships is gaslighting. This is the method of causing someone to doubt their experiences and perception of reality for the sake of manipulating the target. An example of this would be if your brother accuses you of taking his phone that you both know you didn't take, but he doubles down and tries to make you believe that you snagged his phone. He may say things like, "I know you did it," or "I saw you take it when you thought I wasn't looking." And even though you know the truth, The confidence and fake convictions of the words you're hearing cause you to doubt the facts of your own memory. And with these two, Joker has Quinn on lockdown so hard that she gaslights herself whenever she calls his beatdowns tough love or makes excuses for his trash treatment of her. She's either repeating what the Joker has told her in the past, or she's creating narratives in her mind to explain away her situation in order to avoid reality. A second trick used in this situation is isolation. This can come in many forms. It can be physical isolation, in which the victim is left by themselves as a form of punishment for crossing their tormentor, leaving them without food or water or human contact. But it can also come in the form of social isolation. This is often seen in cult groups. They will separate their members from their family, their friends, aka people who will speak out against the crazy going on around them and will try to talk sense into the victim. And we see both of those with our girl Harley. In the Joker's attempt to recondition Harley in the New 52 that we mentioned earlier, she experiences physical isolation. But in her everyday, Harley is in a bubble of social isolation. She's not seeing with anyone other than the Joker. She doesn't have any friends or connections outside of her man's crew. It's not until she breaks out of the Joker's control that her horizons start to expand. And even if you're not in a situation like this, and even if you are, there is hope and you can get out. We still need to be aware in order to avoid what happened to our Cupid of crime, and the answer comes down to one word: culture. When we hear the word culture, we tend to think about the music, language, or religion of a group of people, and that's definitely an example of that word. But culture can also apply to our relationships to other people and ourselves. Harley Quinn and the Joker's relationship was built on a culture just like any other. The problem was that the culture was based on manipulation and the denial of facts and reality. Their culture was one of tolerating mistreatment for the sake of acceptance and purpose, and on the other hand, controlling someone for the sake of getting what one wants. And as we've seen, that's not the kind of culture anyone should want to be a part of. But like I said in my Harley video, the reason Quinn is in this situation in the first place is because of her inner culture. Her self-esteem had deep flaws. Before we can even think about connecting with someone else, make sure you're where you want to be, both in life goals and in your inner life. Do you respect yourself? Do you tolerate other people's nonsense for their sake? Do you love yourself? You have to start there. If your inner culture is one of self-respect, self-care, and compassion for others and yourself, you're on the right path. And if not, like I say, reach out for help, because that battle is not meant to be fought alone. Relationships create a culture for two, and the norms and expectations created there are a reflection of the people within it. And whether we're talking about a relationship you have with someone else, or the most important relationship, the one you have with yourself. During this Valentine's Day weekend, ask yourself, what's your culture like? Because the answer to that question will lead to either loving calm or chaotic calamity. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what other characters and franchises you'd like me to discuss next. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video is ready. Until next time.